Have you ever felt it? That pressure in the air, the weight you can't explain. The Bible calls it a sign, a reminder that in a restless world, God is calling his people to do something radical. Be still. And in Revelation, a mystery unfolds. The 144,000. Who are they? And what does their calling mean for us today? This is not just prophecy. It's personal. Stay with me. Through his phone, emails, social media, headlines screaming disaster. His thumb hovered over a devotional app, but the thought of one more voice, one more command, made his chest tighten. He swiped it away. Then silence. Not the absence of sound, but a sudden inexplicable hush, like the world had taken a breath. The hum of the fridge faded. The traffic outside dulled to a murmur. Daniel frowned, glancing around as if the air itself had shifted. His gaze landed on the Bible. Its spine cracked from years of neglect. A verse flickered through his mind unbidden. Be still and know that I am God. He blinked. Psalm 46, verses 10. He hadn't read it in months. The noise rushed back in, but the words lingered, pressing against his ribs like an invitation or a challenge. He reached for the Bible, dust stirring as he flipped to Revelation, a book he'd always found. Cryptic, daunting. His finger traced chapter 7. The numbers 144,000 leaping off the page. Sealed. Servants of God. Who were they? Why that number? A notification buzzed on his phone. He ignored it. For the first time in weeks, curiosity eclipsed exhaustion. He grabbed a notebook, scribbling questions in the margins. The chaos outside still churned, but inside something quiet and insistent had taken root. He would find answers. Daniel's desk was a battlefield of open books, scribbled notes, and half-empty coffee cups. The glow of his laptop cast long shadows across the room as he hunched over Revelation 7, his brow furrowed. The words 144,000 had burrowed into his thoughts, refusing to let go. He'd started with the obvious, cross-referencing commentaries, scanning theological articles. Some scholars insisted the number was literal, 12,000 from each tribe of Israel, a remnant preserved, for God's purpose. Others dismissed it as symbolic, a representation of spiritual completeness. A people sealed not by bloodline, but by faith. Daniel chewed his pen cap, frustration simmering. The more he read, the more the interpretations tangled. One source claimed the 144,000 were martyrs of the end times. Another argued they were evangelists marked for divine protection. His notes sprawled in chaotic arrows and question marks, mirroring the storm in his mind. A knock at the door startled him. His sister, Leah, leaned against the frame, arms crossed. You've been holed up in here for hours. He rubbed his eyes, trying to figure something out. She glanced at the mess of papers. Revelation. Yeah, the 144,000. Leah smirked. Good luck. That's like trying to solve a riddle wrapped in a prophecy. He exhaled, tossing his pen onto the desk. I need to understand. She studied him for a moment, then softened. Maybe it's not just about understanding. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? Leah shrugged. You're treating it like a puzzle to solve. What if it's a question to live? She left before he could reply, her words hanging in the air. Alone again, Daniel stared at the open pages. The argument swirled. Literal versus symbolic, past versus future. But beneath them, a quieter question gnawed at him. Could I ever be among them? The thought was absurd, arrogant even. He wasn't some flawless saint. He skipped prayers, snapped at coworkers, drowned his stress in distractions. The idea wouldn't leave. He flipped to Ezekiel, then to Romans, tracing the threads of covenant and calling. A single line from an old commentary caught his eye. The seal is not for the perfect, but for the surrendered. His phone buzzed, a work email. He hesitated, then silenced it. For the first time, the mystery felt personal. The coffee shop was nearly empty, the late afternoon light slanting through the windows in golden bars. Daniel sat across from Pastor Mark, fingers curled around his mug, steam curling into the air between. The older man's eyes were steady, patient, the kind of gaze that made silence feel safe rather than awkward. Daniel had called him on a whim, half expecting a brush-off. But Mark had agreed, without hesitation, as if he'd been waiting for the question. So, Mark said, setting down his own cup, the 144,000. Daniel nodded, pushing his notebook across the table. I've read everything from literal tribal counts to metaphors for the church, but none of it feels complete. Mark thumbed through the pages, humming softly. You've done your homework. He paused on a highlighted passage. They were redeemed from mankind as firstfruits for God and the Lamb. Tell me what stands out to you here. Daniel hesitated. Firstfruits. It's an offering, right? The best of the harvest. Exactly. Mark leaned forward. Not the only harvest, but the part willingly given first. He tapped the page. The seal isn't a VIP pass. It's a mark of surrender. People who've let God refine them like gold in fire. Daniel's throat tightened. So it's not about being flawless. Mark chuckled. If it were, I'd be disqualified before breakfast. His tone sobered. It's about daily, choosing to say, here I am. Even when it's hard, especially then. A barista clattered dishes behind the counter, the sound sharp in the quiet. Daniel stared into his coffee, the words settling into his ribs. Mark sighed, stretching his shoulders. Exodus talks about sealing too. The Israelites marked their doors with blood, not because they were perfect, but because they trusted. The seal was protection and purpose. They were spared to walk free. Daniel exhaled. So the 144,000, they're not just selected. They're surrendered. Bingo. Mark grinned. It's not who makes the cut. It's who's willing to be shaped. The weight in Daniel's chest shifted. Not lighter, but different. Less like fear, more like resolve. Mark checked his watch and stood. One last thing. That stillness verse you mentioned earlier, be still, no. He grabbed his coat. You can't surrender what you don't know. And you can't know if you don't stop running. The door chimed as he left. Daniel stayed. The empty chair across from him, a silent invitation. Outside, traffic pulsed, phones buzzed. The world rushed on. But for the first time, he didn't reach for his. Instead, he closed his eyes and whispered, here I am. The alarm blared at 5:30 a.m., shattering the dark. Daniel fumbled to silence it, his pulse already racing with the day's phantom demands, emails to answer, deadlines looming, the gnawing guilt of unfinished tasks. He sat up, rubbing sleep from his eyes, and reached instinctively for his phone. Then he remembered. Last night's resolution burned in his chest like a stubborn ember. Be still. He set the phone face down on the nightstand, the screen dark. The quiet of the apartment pressed in, thick and unfamiliar. No podcasts, no news, no scrolling to numb the edges of his thoughts. Just his own breathing, the distant hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboards as he stood. Daniel moved to the living room, Bible in hand, and sat cross-legged on the floor. He opened to Psalm 46, tracing the words with his finger. Be still and know that I am God. Silence yawned back at him. His knee bounced. His mind darted. Did I reply to that client? What are the projects behind? Should I check? He clenched his fists, nails biting into his palms. No, not yet. He tried to pray, but the words felt stiff, rehearsed. God, help me to. His phone buzzed in the other room. He lurched halfway to his feet before catching himself. This was harder than he'd thought. The clock ticked. Outside, a car honked, a siren wailed. Daniel exhaled, long and slow, and tried again. Just breathe. Just be here. A memory surfaced his father years ago, teaching him to skip stones at the lake. You've got to wait for the water to settle, he'd said, or the ripples will ruin your throw. Daniel closed his eyes. The chaos in his mind was like that disturbed water, churning with what-ifs and to-dos, obscuring whatever might lie beneath. What am I afraid of? The question startled him. He reached for his journal, scribbling. If I'm still, I'll fall behind. If I'm still, God might ask something hard. If I'm still, I'll have to face what's really in me. His pen hovered. The admission hung raw in the air. A bird trilled outside the window, clear and bright. Daniel lifted his head. Dawn had broken, pale gold spilling across the carpet. He turned back to Psalm 46, reading further. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear. The words landed differently now, as if the silence had carved a space for them to take root. He wasn't just stopping, he was trusting, letting the ripples fade so he could see clearly. His phone buzzed again, insistent. This time he didn't flinch. He stayed. The email notification blinked on Daniel's screen, its subject line sharp as a blade. Termination notice. His stomach dropped. 3 years of late nights, of bending over backwards. Gone with a single corporate restructuring. He exhaled through clenched teeth, fingers hovering over the keyboard, itching to fire off a reply. His pulse roared in his ears, drowning out the quiet he'd fought so hard to cultivate. Be still. The words from Psalm 46 felt hollow now. He slammed the laptop shut and grabbed his keys. The apartment walls pressed in, suffocating. He needed air movement, noise, anything to outrun the panic clawing up his throat. The park was nearly empty, the sky bruised with impending rain. Daniel paced the length of the walking trail, his thoughts a whirlwind of resumes to update, bills to pay, the gnawing shame of failure. A jogger passed him, earbuds in oblivious. He envied her rhythm, her certainty of direction. His phone buzzed. Leah heard. What happened? Call me. He stuffed it back in his pocket. He couldn't bear her pity, not now. Rain began to fall, thin and cold. Daniel ducked under a pavilion, shivering as the storm rolled in. The scent of wet earth filled the air, mingling with the metallic tang of his own frustration. He leaned against a wooden post, watching the downpour. Why now? The question twisted into accusation. He tried, really tried, to seek stillness, to surrender. And this was the reward? Unemployment? Uncertainty? A flash of movement caught his eye. Near the edge of the pavilion, a spider clung to its web, the silk trembling under the assault of raindrops. The thread stretched thin, but held. Daniel watched, transfixed, as the creature worked steadily, reinforcing the strands even as the storm threatened to tear them apart. His throat tightened. He fumbled for his phone, fingers numb, and opened his Bible app. The screen blurred as he scrolled to Revelation 7, to the words that had started it all. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Washed, not spared from the storm, but cleansed by it. The spider's web glistened, water beating like diamonds on the threads. Daniel exhaled. Then, haltingly, he began to hum, an old hymn his grandmother used to sing. The notes wavered at first, thin against the drumming rain. But as he sang, something in his chest loosened. The fear didn't vanish, but it no longer choked him. His phone buzzed again. "Leah." This time he answered. Her voice was warm, frayed with worry. "Talk to me." Rain sheeted across the pavement, relentless. The spider anchored itself, waiting. Daniel closed his eyes. "I'm here," he said. And for the first time that day, it wasn't a lie. The rain had stopped, but the air still clung thick with the scent of wet pavement and earth. Daniel sat on his apartment balcony, a blanket draped over his shoulders, staring at the city lights flickering through the lingering mist. 3 days had passed since the termination email. 3 days of sleepless nights, of resumes sent into the void, of silence where a job offer should have been. Yet something had shifted. The spider's web haunted him. Not the fragility of it, but the persistence, the way it held fast, even when the storm should have torn it apart. He reached for his journal, its pages wrinkled from the rain that had seeped into his bag. The pen hesitated over the paper before he wrote. Refinement isn't destruction. It's revelation. The words surprised him. He hadn't planned them, hadn't even known he believed them until they appeared on the page. But they felt true in a way that settled deep, like a stone sinking to the riverbed. Inside, his phone buzzed. Another rejection email, no doubt. He let it ring out. Instead, he flipped to Revelation 7 again, tracing the lines about the 144,000. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more. The sun shall not strike them, nor any scorching heat. Protection, not from suffering, but through it. A memory surfaced, his mentor's voice over coffee. The seal isn't a VIP pass. It's a mark of surrender. Daniel exhaled, long and slow. He wasn't fearless. The bill still loomed. The future still yawned wide and uncertain. But for the first time, the fear didn't paralyze him. It didn't send him spiraling into frantic action or numb distraction. It just was, and so was he. He set the journal aside and leaned back, watching the last of the clouds drift across the moon. The city hummed below, relentless as ever, but the noise felt distant now, like static on a radio tuned just slightly off the station. A verse rose in his mind unbidden. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14, verse 14. He hadn't read it in years. The phone buzzed again. This time he picked it up, not to check the email, but to call Leah. "Hey," he said when she answered. "You free for coffee tomorrow?" Her pause was brief but palpable. Yeah, of course." He could hear the unasked question in her voice. "Are you okay?" Daniel smiled faintly. "Bring your Bible," he said. "I think I'm ready to talk." The line went quiet, then softly, "Okay." He ended the call and sat there, the night air cool against his skin. The fear wasn't gone. The storm wasn't over. The web held, and so did he, sealed not by certainty, but by surrender. If this message spoke to you, take a moment right now to declare it in the comments. I am still and I will see. Your words matter. They're a step of faith. And if you want more teachings like this, subscribe, turn on the bell, and share this video with someone who needs encouragement today. Remember, God fights for you. You need only be still.